for the last time this year, we're gonna find out what you guys asked the Phoenix, and fuck, I'm late again. What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with your November edition of Ask the Phoenix, the last edition of Ask the Phoenix for 2017. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everybody that has contributed to Ask the Phoenix this year. It's been a lot of fun, along with the pay-per-view pick 'em, which I'll talk about in a little bit, or possibly next week. Is the chance I get to talk to you guys, the chance I get to interact with you guys get to participate in this channel, even if it's just a little bit. And as I always say, as is becoming quite cliche, this particular series doesn't happen without you guys. So I really want to thank those of you guys that have used to ask me questions, those of you guys that have just started asking me questions, those of you that have been here the whole way, like Cheney, who I'm going to talk about in a second. But if you want to participate in this Q&A, put your questions down in the box below. Please keep in mind that I'm going to be answering these questions either at the end of January or the week going into the Royal Rumble. I'm not quite sure yet. I will keep you guys posted on Twitter, etc., how that's all gonna, come out in the wash. But bottom line, put your questions down in the box below. I don't usually limit people. I went through a period of time where I was saying, okay, 10 questions per person, but then I said, fuck it, just be reasonable is what I'm gonna say there. But this is a lot of fun. It's not going anywhere. I switched over to doing it every other month this year. That seems to work out pretty well. A little bit less work for me, but I have been doing some other things. Quick programming note, there may or may not be a Survivor Series weekend Fallout video. Why are we beeping? Why is this a thing? A Survivor Series Survivor Series weekend Fallout video coming sometime next week. If I can get myself and Guapo and Kristen together, we might do that. Other than that, as you guys know, after this and after that, I will be on my break. Past couple of years, I've just taken December off because, as we all know, December is kind of a shitty time for wrestling. They all basically go on break themselves until Royal Rumble season kicks off, which, I mean, it's Christmas. Nobody can really blame them. They're doing the live Christmas and the live New Year's Raws, which sucks for the roster. But yeah, there may or may not, depending on what I'm able to do, be one surprise video coming out for you guys sometime in the month of December. For those of you that know when my birthday is, there may or may not be a surprise video coming out for you guys at that point. I don't know quite yet, but it's one of those stay tuned and see, because if there is, sounded like I'm fucking Italian. If there is that surprise video, it will be the only video you guys get from me in the month of December, because we're looking at the Clash of Champions for SmackDown, and yeah, it already looks like it's pretty shit. Oh yes. Let's get down to the questions. Speaking of Cheney, as I said a second ago, Charza93, aka Cheney815, says, the original theme for these questions was going to be ECW, shit brand and all, but since WWE are on a bit of a WCW era kick, I'm going to go with these instead. What do you think really killed WCW? Now, I haven't watched the Monday Night War all the way through, the video that came out a long ass time ago. I haven't seen the TV series, the Monday Night War that they do on the WWE Network, because it's done, it's over, it's whatever. But the little bit that I did see of WCW, because I wasn't, you guys know, I was a WWF guy, now WWE guy. I wasn't really a WCW fan. Obviously, I know who Goldberg was, I knew who Sting was, I knew what the NWO was, because back then you really couldn't avoid it. NWO t-shirts were everywhere. Basically, if you want to bring it down to fundamentals for a second, WWF at the time was a wrestling company. I mean, it still is now. It tries to be other things, and we all know how those other things go. Total Divas, Total Bellas, the movies, etc., that we're going to talk about in a second. The problem being, in my personal opinion, and this is not based on any hard research or hard facts and whatnot, this is just my own personal opinion. The problem, and why WWF won and why WCW lost, is because Turner, Time Warner, etc., and all the other subheadings of those companies were a huge company that did a lot of things, and wrestling was one of them. That's a recipe for disaster when you're going up against a company that is a wrestling company. I know that sounds like a super simplified answer, but if you're going in one direction, everybody, you know, everybody's running the same race, everybody's heads are pointed in the same direction, you're going to have a more focused company than you will if you're a company that, you know, sometimes does wrestling and sometimes does other television and sometimes does whatever the hell else Ted Turner, Time Warner, all those things do. It's they weren't a wrestling company at the end of the day. They brought in people to run a wrestling company. They were mostly TV people, and you can go online and hear any number of wrestlers do the shoot promos that they get paid, you know, obscene amounts of money to do after a company goes under or after they leave a company, to say, oh, this guy was running it or that guy was running it, this guy didn't know what the fuck he was doing, that guy didn't know what the fuck he was doing. But they weren't a wrestling company. It was a regular, everyday company running a wrestling show. I mean, we in the wrestling world, wrestlers, wrestling fans, people in that bubble want to talk about, you know, we're in here, we're doing our wrestling thing, and everybody else is out there. Well, WWE was in here. Ted Turner, Time Warner, etc. were out there trying to do a wrestling show, and that's not something that's going to work. What were your top favorite WCW wrestlers? I gotta go super cliche here. DDP, Sting, Goldberg. I'm going to say Kevin Nash, even though Kevin Nash is fucking Diesel. But Chris Jericho. 5 names off the top of my head. Top 3 least favorite fucking... the artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea was particularly lame. I wasn't around for like the Shockmaster and the Yeti and stuff like that. Never really got into Finlay. I don't remember whether I saw Finlay first in WCW or WWE or back and forth or whatever. Never really, and this crosses over into WWE as well. No disrespect to the guy's work. I'm not saying he was a terrible worker. Obviously, he's made his contributions to the industry, etc. Never a really big fan of Finlay. The Giant wasn't really shit. And they thought he was huge back then. He walked in to the company and immediately beat Hulk Hogan for the championship. So how do I say that he was nothing? He's just a big guy. The same thing as what Big Show is now. And Lars Sullivan, as much as I hate to say it, Braun Strowman is sort of breaking that mold with him being athletic as fuck. But like, and Big Show, the thing about Big Show, aka Giant, whatever, he'll admit to you, he didn't know how to wrestle. They brought him in because he was big and he was an attraction and whatever. Yeah. Which, oh, this is a little bit better. This is a little bit something I can sink my teeth into a little bit. Sorry, the first couple of questions I sort of muddled through because I didn't really watch, so I don't really know how to give you an answer. But which WCW pay-per-views would you like to come back under the WWE umbrella? Maybe one for each brand. I would have said the War Games, but we just did that, kinda. I mean, I can't really roll my eyes at that. The NXT version of the War Games was a pretty badass match, I'm not going to lie. Shout out to everybody involved, especially Killian Dane and some of the shit that they did. But if I can't say War Games or Fall Brawl, which is where War Games happened, I would say Bash at the Beach just because it's fun, and because of my own personal bias, I would say Halloween Havoc. Not because I found it to be a particularly decent pay-per-view, although I'm sure it was. Warrior versus Hogan, because that was a classic. But more so because I have an incredible bias towards Halloween. And the incredible bias towards Halloween is it's the only holiday throughout the year, realistically, that doesn't come with any bullshit. I mean, you got my American friends, first and foremost. Happy Thanksgiving to all you guys that are down there. We had our Thanksgiving a month ago because, you know, different holidays are different. You got Christmas, you got New Year's, you got all those kind of things. And there's all kinds of heavy bullshit that goes on with that. You got to get dressed up for Thanksgiving. You got to go see the family for Christmas. And it comes down to some family politics of who's having dinner where and what are we going to do for New Year's. We have to make it. This decision is going to set out the whole rest of our year, etc. Halloween is just fun. Halloween is just fun, and there's no bullshit attached to it. There's no big social stigma. There's no expectation other than you're going to go out, you're going to dress like a goofball, you're going to eat a bunch of shit that's bad for you, and you're going to watch some shitty movies. That's Halloween. And if you know anything about me, that's a holiday made for me. Now, as you guys know, I ranted a couple weeks ago, my Halloween this year was absolute shit, and that bummed me out quite a bit. Doesn't change the fact Halloween is my favorite holiday. It doesn't change the fact that I would definitely love to see Halloween Havoc in WWE rather than another generic Hell in a Cell, etc. So there's your answer on that one. Job Team Barry, Never Drew a Dime edition, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, Shane Douglas. I have zero knowledge on Shane Douglas. I really don't. My knowledge is limited to WWE, guys. You guys know this. So I guess I'll bury Shane Douglas. I'll team with Perry Saturn, because especially when he got to WWE, he was a bit of a goofball. And I will job to Dean Malenko, because the guy was fucking technical as shit. So let's go with that. 6. Considering he had creative control and was a multi-time champion before WCW was bought out, do you think Kevin Nash should have given WCW world title reign or opportunity to Scott Hall? Of course. Of course. They could have easily redone the finger poke of doom between the outsiders. It would have been badass. It would have been, you know, recooking the same steak, so to speak, but I think they could have done it. I think Scott Hall, in general, should have held a world title somewhere. Just yes. I don't have to elaborate on that. Yes, he definitely. Speaking of Hall, who else do you think should have been WCW champion but never was? Too many to name, I guess. This is where my history sucks, and this is where I'm not going to include the world title once it was brought to WWE. But I was like Chris Jericho. I know Chris Jericho was the first ever undisputed champion, and that brought together the WCW and WWE championships, etc. But I don't. Best of my recollection, he never got a world title in WCW. Definitely should have. Thoughts of the post-unmasking giant killer gimmicked 1999 not so fighting for Eddie Guerrero yet Rey Mysterio winning the WCW title, and how does it compare to David Arquette and Vince Russo? Well, David Arquette and Vince Russo aren't wrestlers. And for those of you that know my opinion of Rey Mysterio, I would rather have a shitty wrestler win a title than a non-wrestler. I'd rather have James Ellsworth win the title than what Vince McMahon did back in the day and gave himself the ECW title. I mean, let's be real for a second. That was just a middle finger to Paul Heyman. But I mean, Rey Mysterio, and it's funny that you mentioned the giant killer gimmick. Rey Mysterio, for the most part, in WCW, as far as I remember, before and after being unmasked, sort of stayed in his lane. He stayed in his lane. He was one of the most well-known cruiserweights they had. He was one of the figureheads of the cruiserweight division. I mean, he got unmasked, and he had the weird horn things on his head, and he did a couple different factions and whatnot, and it was all very questionable. But as far as his work in the ring, he was a cruiserweight because he's a cruiserweight. The giant killer gimmick is a precursor to everything they tried to do with him in WWE, including beating Kane and the Big Show and standing up to the fucking Undertaker. And let's be real, if Giant Gonzalez was still around, he would have beaten Giant Gonzalez as well. So the fact that you're that specific, I don't want to say Rey Mysterio winning the world title at that point, because that's the mistake that WWE made, and they compounded that by disrespecting Eddie Guerrero's memory in the process. But I mean, would I still rather him have it than two guys that aren't wrestlers for a publicity stunt? A publicity stunt that, let's be real, was used to advertise a bad movie. The only reason David Arquette was in there winning the WCW Championship because they wanted to cross-promote, and they wanted to do that big weird cage match from Ready to Rumble, which is a hilarious movie, but a shit movie at the same time. Everything about me wanting to defend wrestling makes me want to hate that movie. The fact that it's ridiculous and I laugh my ass off when I watch it is entirely besides the point. Right? Right. Okay. Long-winded answer for something that should have been really, really short. Who, past, present, or future, would fit into WCW? Again, are there too many to name? It's weird because WCW was very strange, or at least me watching it as an outsider fan was very, very strange. You either had these huge names that were getting old, you had these brand new young names, mostly cruiserweights, that nobody really knew, but they were putting on cool matches, so there's a little bit of something to gravitate to there. I would say, honestly, and most people might laugh at this, throw in John Cena, The Rock, and the current WWE Cruiserweight division. Because that would fit both stereotypes of the company. You got a couple big names. You got your Hogan of this generation, The Rock of this generation. Sort of Hogan being Cena and Rock being, I guess, Ric Flair. Is that a fair? You tell me down in the box below if that's a fair comparison. But then you got the cruiserweights that nobody really knows, and they're all kind of interchangeable, but yet they're going to give us good matches at the end of the day. I don't really know. Assuming they had their shit together from the very beginning, how do you think wrestling would look if WCW had won the Monday Night Wars? If WCW had won the Monday Night Wars, I don't think we would have pro wrestling as we know it right now, because they would have won, but still, as I said before, they're not a wrestling company. They're a big company trying to put on a wrestling show, and especially now the internet being what it is, the fan base being what it is, and fans out there right now wanting so bad to bash shit. I've said before, I've stopped listening to YouTubers and podcasters that are just sort of like hate for hire, like they're just going to put out a ranty video because it'll get them views and it'll get them money. I've stopped listening to those people. Doesn't mean that I don't agree with them on some things. It's just like, you're just here to be angry. WCW, even if they had won the Monday Night Wars, would not survive the scrutiny that today's wrestling fans give it. And I mean, that's not me putting myself in a separate category either. I know I come up here and I shit on stuff and I talk about how terrible Naomi is, for example, because it's true. Talk about how terrible Rey Mysterio was in WWE, because it's true. He was more Cena than Cena. Like Daniel Bryan was more Cena than Cena, and people don't want to admit it. And you're not allowed to make fun of Naomi because that makes you racist, because that's the way the world is these days. But I don't come up here specifically to bitch about things. I cut down on Raw, I cut down on SmackDown, because that's all I was doing, was complaining about Raw, complaining about SmackDown. I come up here to talk to you guys about NXT because I have fun doing it. I come up here with Kristen and Guapo to preview pay-per-views, because even if I think the pay-per-views themselves are going to suck, I come up here and we have fun doing it. I come up here, I answer your guys' questions in the Q&A segment like we're doing tonight, because it's fun and I like doing it. I do things like the surprise that's hopefully coming in December, because it's going to be fun and I'm going to enjoy doing it. Plus, I don't make any money on this shit, so if I was up here doing hate for hire, I would want a paycheck at the end of the day, and I don't. I really, really don't. I never want to get paid for this job. I was a partner, as most of you guys know, for a little bit. They told me I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, you know, copyright, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just made me water shit down, and I only lasted like a month, and then they sort of fucked me over for my monetization anyway. But, yeah, most people out there are really angry and looking for something to bitch about. I mean, look at JD from New York, for example. WCW in the current day wouldn't survive. We would have the uprising of other shit. You would have more chance for something like a Lucha Underground to come in and take over. ROH would probably be bigger than it is right now. The influence from Japan, even though we do feel it a lot in our current pro wrestling and just talking to wrestling fans, etc., I think that would probably be the dominant thing. Like New Japan, ROH, maybe something like a Lucha Underground, just because it's so different. Local shit like I know a lot of people in the States that I talk to, they go to their local shows. You guys know I went to my first house show a couple weeks ago out here in Mississauga. Went to Destiny Pro Wrestling and saw Pete Dunne face John Morrison, which was a whole lot of fun. I think there'd be a lot more to go around if WCW like basically ate up WWE. I don't think either of them would exist now. That's it's kind of weird to think about because I'm pretty much a WWE guy, but yeah, it wouldn't be. And he follows it up with, thank you as always, see you next year, Merry Christmas, or Happy Holidays, or whatever isn't considered triggering these days. Hashtag sorry not sorry. And I gotta say, I love comments like that. First of all, because it shows how long Cheney's been watching my videos and he knows what kind of a dick I am. Second of all, you know I'm going to talk about the holiday thing, right? You know it's just going to be another one of those PC things that I got to comment on for a second. And the way he phrased that, whatever isn't considered triggering these days, there's no answer to that. So don't bother trying. Say Merry Christmas if you want to. Say Happy Hanukkah if you want to. Say Happy New Year's. Say whatever you want to say, because the truth of the matter is people are out there in the world looking to be offended because they think they're going to get farther in the world by being offended and having everybody cater to their little offended snowflake needs and whatnot than actually going out there and doing something. I saw a great meme a while ago, and it's just a meme of a street sign. And it's something that I want to staple to everybody's forehead, realistically speaking. And it's just a simple marquee outside of a random building. I don't even know what the building is. And it says, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. And that is so fucking true. That is so fucking true. So, dude, Cheney, and I'm speaking directly to you right now, you've been sticking with me with this Q&A series with the whole Ask the Phoenix shtick here that I do, I think, since the beginning. So I do need to send an extra special shout-out to you guys, and I don't think you've missed a single one. I don't think there hasn't been a single Q&A where I haven't had at least 10 questions from Cheney, and he goes to the extra effort of doing the job Team Barry every time. Goes to the special effort of normally, like, theming his questions for the Q&A. And I gotta say, I know I'm rambling on a whole lot because it's tired in here and it's Friday in here, but Cheney, you're the man, and you're one of the reasons I do this, and I cannot say thank you enough. Moving on to Snakebit Goat, who says, once again, thank you for the support. No problem. Snakebit Goat actually shared with us a couple months ago some personal struggles that they were having, and I had a little bit of, you know, hey guys, Snakebit Goat's having a bit of a rough time. You know, send some positive thoughts and prayers and vibes and whatever you want to say out about that. And I'll reiterate now what I said, I think, a month or so ago. For those of you out there that are having bad times, I just sound like a rambling idiot up here most of the time, but if you guys are having bad times and you're just getting sort of reminded that the real world sucks, you want to come watch my videos, joke around with me, and sort of forget that the world sucks for a little bit, I really hope I can provide that to you guys. And as much as I'm not serious on here that much, I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. If I can lighten your load, so to speak, I'm really happy to do it. Your views on Mercedes Martinez are interesting, and it's nice to hear as you're an outsider from her previous work. Much appreciated. And now on to the current questions, some good and some bizarre. Yeah, Mercedes Martinez, I'm pretty neutral on. I didn't see her before the Mae Young Classic, and I liked what I saw. It's one of those, okay, I've seen what you can do, show me some more and we'll see where you go. I think they're immediately feuding her with Ember Moon, and I don't know that that's necessarily the right move, because she's, they're sort of playing her off as the veteran, but she's the veteran newcomer, so that's a very odd dynamic for them to try and pull off. She's not an AJ Styles, the veteran newcomer AJ Styles. Everybody knew who AJ Styles was before he came to WWE. Let's be real for a second. Who should end Asuka's streak? Or did the right woman break Asuka's streak if it's already broken by the time this Q&A happens? I don't know. I have a couple of selfish answers. I'm glad it wasn't Ember Moon. I really am. I don't think it should be any of the people that we initially think of. I don't think it should be a Charlotte or a Bayley or a Becky Lynch or a Sasha Banks, because those women, not that they don't deserve it, but they were already given so much. They've been handed everything, and at this point it'll just be one more accolade, especially Charlotte Flair. And this is nothing against Charlotte Flair, but I mean, she does get handed quite a bit, and she already has quite a bit under her belt just with her lineage and whatnot. And I'm sure that's a burden for her to bear. All the due respect to that, but it's just, I don't want it to be somebody where they're like, oh, so and so beat Asuka's streak, and we all react with, you know, oh, of course she did. I would love it to be Nikki Cross, because Nikki Cross is not somebody we think would do it, and she's somebody that could use that boost, and she's the only one that didn't get swept up in that big, you know, migration of women from NXT to the main roster, which I think is going to be a whole lot of fun. I wouldn't mind if it had been Ruby Riott, build Ruby Riott up a little bit more. Sonya Deville would have been an interesting one. I don't know, there's a couple out there. If you could hire any writer from WWE... Sorry, if you could hire any writer to write for WWE, who would it be? My picks are, I don't know how to pronounce that name, Graham Mason or John Fawcett. I'm not familiar with either one of those names. I know that when Road Dogg took over SmackDown, it went into the shitter. I know that when they moved some writing talent from NXT to SmackDown, it made it the go-to show on the main roster. So my default answer, because I don't know a whole lot of names, I'm sorry, is going to be shuffle some more of those NXT writers around, because because NXT is only 1 hour, those writers are so used to writing stories with simple, simplistic, but yet very effective storylines. And I mean, the whole Aleister Black and Velveteen Dream thing notwithstanding, because that was just weird. Thoughts on Elias? Also, do you think his heat is X-Pac heat or actual heat? I've got an odd comparison for you. Elias is in the ring is so separate from his gimmick. He reminds me a lot of a Triple H. He's not on the Triple H level, but the fact that you could see Triple H back in the day, you could see him at the beginning of the night come out and cut a ridiculous DX promo, crotch chopping with the friggin' glow sticks and all that sort of thing. But yet, at the end of the night, he could be the cerebral assassin, and he could be legitimately, believably ripping your head off. Elias in the ring is a fucking beast. I love watching him in the ring. I'm so on his gimmick, but it's one of those things where there's people that love it, there's people that think it's terrible. There's not very much in between. There's nobody that's super neutral on Elias. I find the gimmick funny. I recognize it for what it is. He's going to come out there, he's going to get booed, and we're going to go from there. But there's a thing with wrestling fans right now, and I don't know when exactly it started. I know for me it started back at WrestleMania a couple years ago with Sheamus and Daniel Bryan in that opening contest, the 18 seconds thing. I watched that match, and I didn't think about the match. I thought about, Daniel Bryan just got squashed. This is such a stupid, retarded move. My immediate thought was, I can't wait to get online. My immediate thought is, as you guys know, I was doing some videos with Deluxe Man back in the day around that time. My immediate thought, because he was such a big Daniel Bryan fan, is I can't wait to see Deluxe Man's review of this WrestleMania because of that moment. I think there's a similar element here where the people that like Elias probably equally like going on Twitter and hearing about how much people hate Elias. For me, it was The Miz. And people have come around to The Miz now, which is awesome for him because he's getting a lot of prominent spots. But I remember around the time that Miz was WWE champion, around the time that he was main eventing with John Cena and interacting with The Rock and nobody could stand him, not only was I a fan of The Miz, but I enjoyed how much people don't like him. And I think there's a similar element with Elias. I think that's really cool, and I think that's sort of like the smart mark era where you get that mixed reaction. It all started with John Cena, WWE, praising the mixed reaction as being a good thing. But I mean, the next person that's going to fit into that Miz role is probably Enzo, because I enjoy Enzo, and I enjoy how much Enzo pisses everybody else off. It makes me smile deep down in my heart. Sorry, losing my voice. Give me 1 second, please. But I think Elias is along the same regard. The fans that enjoy him enjoy what he does in the ring, what he does on the mic, and what he does to the crowd. So I don't think he has X-Pac yet. I think people just generally wanted X-Pac to fuck off. And I don't think that's the case with Elias. I really don't. Those of you, any of you that disagree with me or have a different take on the Enzo thing, feel free to share it down in the box below. Do you watch Southpaw Regional Wrestling, the WWE web series posted back a few months ago, and if so, did you like it? I haven't seen it yet. From everything that I've heard from friends of mine that have, similar senses of humor than me, they've all told me I should, and it's literally one of those things on the list of I just haven't gotten around to it yet. How would you book a face wrestler who is rich and how would you book a face wrestler who is rich and a face wrestler that is smart? And are those two gimmicks usually heel gimmicks? You can be rich and be a babyface. I mean, as much as people hate Vince McMahon, we have to love Vince McMahon, or there's no WWE. Shane McMahon is still a babyface, and his music is literally, here comes the money. Like, his music should be the most arrogant music there is, but it's not, because he's Shane and we love him, and he does some good shit. I don't know that you do a smart thing, because in order to have somebody's gimmick be that they're smart, they have to talk about how smart they are, and nobody likes that. And that's why, as you say, typically the rich guy is a heel. And that's kind of shit, because that also kind of happens in real life. We sort of have this knee-jerk reaction to hate the rich, when you don't really hate them, and they're not necessarily really bad people. They're just people that have what you don't have. Which, at the end of the day, means they're people that have done something somewhere along the way that you didn't. And rather than figuring that shit out and achieving that and stepping up to that and saying, okay, they did this, if I do this, I'll be where they are. you know, this person is 5 steps ahead of me because they took 5 more steps, that kind of thing. And nobody really wants to do that. They want to sit in their current position and still have the things that rich people have. They don't want to admit that about themselves, so they project that anger out onto the stereotypical rich person. And I mean, you take that, you copy paste it into a character mode where the guy actually does come out and actually is a dick and actually does do bad things. The story writes itself. To write a rich story, or sorry, a rich character that is a babyface, you'd have to like know that he's rich without him saying it. Like, he could come out in some nice clothes and, you know, say he teams up with Enzo Amore for a night. He gets Enzo a new fucking jumpsuit because they're partners for the night, or some shit. You could do it, but it would have to be corny, and it would have to be like super good guy, like John Cena coming out and writing like $50,000 checks to Susan G. Komen or some bullshit like that. You could do it. I don't know that it would work. Who ruins everything more, Nia Jax or Naomi? Well, Nia Jax doesn't ruin anything. Nia Jax is getting progressively better. Naomi is trash, so there's that. Nia Jax's problem isn't her ability. It's the fact that the WWE, as much as we don't have a whole roster of Barbie dolls anymore, they still are booking her like a fat chick. And that's terrible for me to say, and I feel bad every time I say it. I've said this in multiple videos, but basically they book her like a fat chick. They don't dress her very flatteringly at all. Like, she's not exactly a hard person to look at, but they dress her kind of terrible, like ring gear wise, and everything she does is, I'm gonna run into you because I'm big, or I'm gonna squash you because I'm big, and that just, like, her whole character is that she's bigger than everybody else. Why do you think WWE gets such a boner to book her in matches with people like Alexa Bliss? Because look at her, she's big. I mean, right down to the fact, if you pay attention, and I heard her in an interview a little while ago, and she pointed it out, and I haven't been able to not notice it ever since. She's the only woman that has her weight announced in her ring entrance coming down to the ring. Now, if you want my opinion on that, they should, you know, if we're playing up this angle where the women are equal to the men, and that's not an angle, they should be, and there's a whole separate conversation about intergender wrestling that we're probably going to get into at another time. But if you're going to treat them like the men, you call them down to the ring like the men, hailing from, you know, Joe Blow, Arkansas, weighing in at, you know, 5 pounds soaking wet with a brick in her pocket. Here's Alexa Bliss. Like, I don't know why they don't, just so that they can do it for her. It's very strange, and it's everything that they do about her is pointing out that she's a bigger girl. And then you hear the commentators on commentary trying to explain her offense, and they're so tiptoeing around pointing out that she's a larger girl. So it's very, very awkward, and the way they present her isn't flattering. But that aside, she's not bad. She doesn't ruin anything. At least I don't think. One of the things I loved about Survivor Series, and I'm hoping to talk about it next week, was they had a big, long lump of time dedicated to that big contrast between Nia Jax and Tamina Snuka, which I hope they go forward with, because that's fucking amazing. Different women, like I say, not all Barbie dolls, not all Kelly Kellys. Side note, the rumor that Kelly Kelly's coming back to the WWE, please God, no. Just no. No, back up. You're going the wrong way. So the answer is Naomi, because Naomi's trash, and Nia Jax is just dealing with some unfortunate booking decisions. Sonya Deville or Shayna Baszler, who has more upside? I gotta say Sonya Deville, not because Shayna Baszler doesn't have ability, but because Sonya Deville is a WWE created MMA character, whereas Shayna Baszler is literally an MMA wrestler who's trying to do the pro wrestler thing. There's going to be a bigger learning curve. It's going to be more of a struggle, I predict, and I already like Sonya Deville, so there's that. Sonya Deville coming up with Paige and Mandy Rose on Raw. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh yes. Does Baron Corbin's receding hairline distract from his look? Nah, it kind of defines his look. He's the man with the friggin' 5 head. I don't care about Baron Corbin's forehead. Does it detract from his look? No, because we've never really seen him in any other look. It's kind of weird. Like if we had seen him like 10 years ago, when his hair was probably, you know, down to a 4.5 head, and we saw him like literally on TV, like losing hair day after day after day. Yeah, it would be weird. But I mean, people also make a lot of really unfortunate jokes about Sasha Banks having a 5 head, and that doesn't seem to be stopping her from achieving what she's achieved. Is there a wrestler that you just can't help but dislike? There's a lot of wrestlers, especially in NXT, that have come through NXT. Roderick Strong comes to mind, comes to an example, where I know a Roderick Strong match is going to be good. I know Roderick Strong is proficient in the ring. I know his ring work is crisp. I mean, he overuses the backbreaker gimmick a little too much, if I'm serious. But I can't bring myself to care. I can't. It's very, very similar to the Jack Swagger situation. I mean, people that have been watching me long enough know the conversations I've had about Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger had all the ability in the world, all the in-ring prowess in the world. They never gave him a gimmick that we cared about. All the gimmicks were super shit. They put him in with the real Americans because, of course, all white people are racist. And it's just like they never give us a reason to care about him. And it's terrible because somebody that well put together with that much technical knowledge from the wrestling point of view and that translated pretty damn well into WWE, I can't help but not give a shit. And it's the same with Roderick Strong in NXT right now. It was the same for a while, but I'm coming around very, very slowly on Andrade Cien Almas. I said Andrade Cien Almas, I've gone from thinking that he sucks and he's a terrible gimmick and get him off my screen to he's a great wrestler in the ring, but I just don't care, to him having a hot valet, and I'm like, alright, do whatever the fuck you're gonna do. Not something I should admit on camera, but you know what, sometimes I am that shallow because not everything is 100% serious. Which one of the authors of Pain do you think is the Jannetty? They work pretty identically, so I don't really have an answer for that one. Have you watched any of the animated WWE crossovers? No. You said in the past that you've liked some of the WWE live action movies. I was curious if you saw any of the animated ones. I haven't. And it's weird. I don't really push the I don't push anything on here. I'm not getting paid to advertise, fuck all. But I won't sit here and talk a streak about how great the WWE movies are. I have a couple. Looking across my shelf right now, I've got both 12 rounds. I've got a bunch of the Marine movies, especially with the more recent Marine movies. You guys know I'm a fan of The Miz. They're just fun little, like, pop-off adventure type action movies. There's not much substance to them. They're pretty cut and paste. They're like a fun little thing to put on a Saturday afternoon. The cartoons, I could really give a shit less. And I mean, it's all like Flintstones and Jetsons and bullshit. Same as, like, I'm not gonna watch Total Divas or Total Bellas just because I'm a wrestling. I'm just not. Same thing with, what's another thing I could think of? I'm a big fan of the vampire genre in movies. Doesn't mean I'm going to run out and watch Twilight. I don't know. Very, very strange examples. It's late in the day. Haven't seen any of the anime. Are you a comic book fan by any chance, and do you read the Boom Studios WWE comics? Never heard of Boom Studios, unfortunately. I'm not a big comic book fan, which is odd because people laugh at me for this. People seem to think that this is something that's really, really funny. I haven't picked up a comic since I was like 10 years old. Now, you guys that know me know that I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, what they've put together right now between TV and Netflix and the films that they're doing right now. I think what they've achieved is fantastic. DC is trying. They're not going to catch up to Marvel, but it is what it is. You guys know I'm a big fan of Walking Dead. There's a lot of stuff that I enjoy quite a bit that is comic book based that has still never given me the urge to go back and read a comic. My brothers, both, way, way, way more knowledgeable about Batman than I am. I'm a huge fan of Batman, but I'm not going to go pick up a book. My brother, because he got sick of asking me questions about stuff, gave me this. Joker, Death in the Family. Now, The reality of that is it's a very nice gesture of him to let me borrow a book, you know, graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, comic book. Probably not going to read it. I'm just saying. It's a little secret on the down low. Probably not going to read it. Because one doesn't attach to the other. Same thing here. WWE Boom Studios comics. Again, it comes back to, yeah, I'm a WWE fan, but I'm a WWE fan because I want to watch wrestling, not because I want to read comic books written about wrestlers, because that's odd and awkward, in my opinion. Is there a point where you can no longer blame booking and you just have to repackage a character? Yes. If you insist on keeping Naomi on television, why don't you just go the reality route, have her manage the Usos, keep her on the outside, tell her to stop throwing her ass in other people's faces, because I'm pretty sure that's considered sexual assault, and stop trying to make her into a competitor, because she's not, and she's trash. And finally, is Mike Kanellis the Mark Marrow of this decade, only in the company because of his smoking hot wife? I'm going to say no, and I'm going to be careful how I answer this too, because you guys know, not a really big indie fan, don't know a whole lot about Mike Bennett, but I do know that I was hearing the name Mike Bennett for a good solid 4 years before he ever came near WWE, and before I knew that he was married to Maria. So that was a name that was heavily, heavily flooded around, at least in my wrestling social circles, before he was in WWE. So I want to hope not. I mean, Maria, Sable, Maria. I'm just saying. That's it for Snakebit Goat. Thank you for all of your support. You're thanking me for my support. I'm thanking you for your support. I hope you continue to join us for these videos when we come back next year. And the last is Sara Shield Lover Snyder. Do you like gaming video channels? And if so, which one is your favorite? I really don't. And at the end you say, can I please give you a shout out? Hey, so shout out to Sara Shield Lover Snyder. Snyder? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and I'm sorry. I don't really get gaming channels. I'm not a gamer. I'm not, other than the fact that I have a PS4 over there. It's basically my Netflix machine, and it's my movie player. I do have WWE 2K18. I am having a lot of fun with it. I am adapting to finally having a PS4 instead of a PS3, and that's way, way, way different, and that's just me being super behind in the times. But I'm not a big gamer in general. I don't understand the idea of video games as a spectator sport. I really don't. I know up here in Canada, Cineplex theaters have this thing where you can go and rent a whole theater and you can play videos on the big Videotron, or you can play videos and your friends can, or sorry, video games, and people can come in and watch you. I don't really get that. I know I had a friend several years ago who was in some sort of video game tournament, and the video game tournament that he was playing in actually played out on the Jumbotron of the Sky Dome, back when it was the Sky Dome. So that's huge, and it's a cool thing. It's a cool story. It's a cool thing to say you were able to do. But I can't imagine in a million years paying money to sit in a stadium and watch people play video games. It's not that I don't get it. Everybody does their own thing. I'm a wrestling fan. I'm a YouTuber. I know these things. But it's not a concept I can wrap my head around. And she also follows up with, who are your favorite wrestlers? Anybody down in the box below can tell you who some of my favorite wrestlers, but all time, Canadian, I want to say Bret Hart, but I gotta say Shawn Michaels. Obviously you guys know I have a great fandom soft spot in my heart for both the Hardy Boys and Lita. CM Punk, in more recent times, AJ Styles, Undertaker. I want to say Undertaker, but I almost don't want to say Undertaker because it's such an obvious inclusion. I don't think there's anybody you ask in this day or any other that won't have Undertaker somewhere on their list, because he's got to be one of the best. I don't want to say best in-ring workers, because I'm pretty sure that goes to Shawn Michaels, but he's one of the best things to ever come out of pro wrestling, with the most longevity, the most staying power, the most loyal fan base. You're hard pressed to find somebody with a harder fan base and a more loyal fan base than the character of the Undertaker. So there's a few off the top of your head: Team Extreme, Shawn Michaels, CM Punk, AJ Styles, Undertaker. there's the Spaz faction of fantasy wrestling booking, whatever you want to call it. And I do believe that's it. That is it for the Q&A. That is it for the November edition. That is it for Ask the Phoenix in 2017. Gotta say it, gotta get super repetitive. Thank you to everybody that's participated either tonight or beforehand in this series. Please help me keep it going. I want to come back with a huge one in January. So those of you that, you know, when I take the limit off and say that you can do more than 10, you really want to take advantage of that, please do. Please throw them the questions down in the box below. I will get back to you guys in January. Keep your eyes out. Like I say, we might be doing a video about the fallout from Survivor Series weekend. I might have that other surprise video coming out to you guys around my birthday, for those of you that know when my birthday is. Other than that, if neither of those videos come out, and if this is indeed the last video that I put up on this channel this year, thank you to everybody. Thank you to those of you just watching me right now. Thank you to those of you who are commenting, you know, jabbing with me on Twitter about various shit. Other podcasters that have taken my questions for various Q&As. Shout out to the Married Marks. Shout out to guys that you should be watching, like I don't know, OK Fabe, Good Mic Work, people like that entertain me. People that participate, people that have been on my channel. Big, huge, gigantic shout out to Kristen and Guapo, who make the Tackle preview series what it is. Could not do those videos without those guys, and they're amazing. And you should go follow them. Follow them on Instagram. Follow them on Twitter. Go bug them. Tell them that I told you to do it. If I don't see any of you guys for the rest of the year, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, whatever you do or don't do. I hope you do it safely. Hope you and your friends and your family have a wonderful season, whatever you're celebrating. Looking at the state of the world right now, let's hope 2018 is a little bit better. And just thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, ... Thank you. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I'm tagging out. Bye, guys.